Okay, we might as well make a start. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stephen Allen, and I'll be hosting today's session, which is all about taking a structured approach to cybersecurity. There isn't a more topical subject in IT than cybersecurity, and we're delighted to have one of Australia's foremost experts on the subject, Dr. Stephen Woodhouse, here today as our special guest. Feel free to post your questions in the Q&A section as we move through today's session, and we will respond to those at the end of the session. Before I introduce Stephen, I would like to give you some background about our business here at IntellectIT. We're based in Melbourne, and this year we're celebrating our 20th anniversary as a provider of IT solutions and managed services. Now, you don't celebrate a milestone like that in this industry without doing a lot right. Apart from being a best-in-class service provider, as we like to regard ourselves, the other main reason for our success and longevity is that we believe that the best technology solutions are designed for a specific purpose. We offer a wide range of solutions from all the leading IT vendors because the needs of our customers cover a wide range of requirements. In other words, using the best tool in the market for the job. But it's not just about products. It's the expertise and experience of our team that we believe sets us apart from most of our competitors. Whether it's storage, backup, networking, or today's subject, which is protecting your business from security threats, we believe that we have every angle covered. We regularly deliver products to our customers in areas such as wired and wireless networking, server compute and storage, both on-premise and in private and public cloud. And again, all aspects of security. Over the years, many of our clients have trusted us by outsourcing their IT management to us via our managed service offering. We use industry-leading remote monitoring tools to monitor their environment 24 hours a day and react proactively to ensure that they experience the highest levels of uptime possible. Our team are really friendly and knowledgeable. The service desk team are on hand to take calls from your user base to ensure that inquiries are dealt with promptly. Okay, now on to today's topic. In cybersecurity, we often find ourselves second-guessing what techniques might be employed by cyber criminals when they attempt to breach our cyber defences. And this is for good reason, as once we understand how an attacker will operate, we can better defend against those threats. Fortunately, the MITRE organisation have gone to the trouble of categorising the techniques used by attackers so that we can do just that. This is called the MITRE attack framework. This presentation forms the introduction into a series of events that we will be running to assist our customers to gain a better understanding of what the bad guys are doing so that we can better defend against them. In this presentation, we will introduce the concept of the MITRE attack framework and how you may apply it in your organisation. In later webinars, we will explore specific techniques used by adversaries, along with strategies to combat them. After all, that's the main goal. Whilst this topic might sound a little bit too complicated for some, I encourage you to stick with us as we will endeavour to simplify everything that we will be discussing. There is a method to our madness, so hopefully you'll discover that as we progress. Now, Stephen Woodhouse has more than 20 years of experience working as a CIO. Stephen has been awarded a Doctor of Information Technology through Charles Sturt University for the dissertation Protecting Our Critical Assets, a Management Approach to Information Security. After he concluded his tenure with the Queensland Department of Education as their Chief Information Security Officer. Let me phone off. Apologies. He joined Fortinet Australia as their Field Chief Information Security Officer. We're really excited and thankful to have him with us today. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. Let's get this up for people to have a look at. There we go. Turn the camera on. So thanks, Stephen. Good morning, everyone. As Stephen highlighted in that great introduction, I've got a lot of years working in both the public and private sectors managing information security for them. So to kick off, what I'm going to talk about today are two basic but crucial concepts for information security. Then we'll look at some of the human elements involved in information security, and finally some of the security standards and frameworks you use to secure your environment. So the first concept I want to talk about is the CIA Triad, or they call it the CIA model. CIA is an acronym that stands for Confidentiality, Integrity, and Availability. It is a widely recognised framework in information security that helps organisations protect their valuable assets, such as your data systems, networks, etc. The importance of the CIA Triad lies in its ability to provide a comprehensive approach to security, ensuring that three fundamental principles are addressed adequately. It's worth noting that additional elements such as authenticity, accountability, and non-repudiation are sometimes added to the CIA Triad to expand the security framework further. We won't be looking at these elements today. So what do they mean? Confidentiality refers to the protection of sensitive information from unauthorised access or disclosure. It ensures that only authorised individuals or entities have access to the data. Integrity ensures that data remains accurate, complete, and unaltered during its life cycle. It involves protecting information from unauthorised modification, deletion, or corruption. And availability focuses on ensuring that information and resources are accessible and usable by authorised individuals when needed. It involves measures to prevent service disruptions, system failures, or unauthorised denial of access. Availability is critical for maintaining business operations, providing reliable services, and preventing costly downtime. So by considering the CIA Triad, organisations can implement appropriate security controls and measures to address each aspect effectively. It helps identify vulnerabilities, implement necessary safeguards, and balance security requirements with operational needs. So if I look at this from a role I had previously when I was the CIO at Land and Property Information in New South Wales, titling systems, so land titling, who owns the property people live in, it was critical for us from a integrity perspective. So confidentiality, it's a public record. Anybody can see it. Availability, yes, we needed to do business, but it only operated really during business hours. Integrity was the bit that mattered. If I couldn't tell you that you owned that property, that became a problem, and it was a society problem that we'd have. So we use this model to manage what we're doing in that organisation. The next thing I want to talk about, the next concept, is people, process, and technology, which are three critical components for information security. Each element plays a unique role in ensuring the effectiveness and efficiency of an organisation's security measures. People, process, and technology are interconnected and equally important in information security, where people provide awareness, vigilance, and security-focused culture. I'm going to talk a little bit more about people later on. Process establish consistent and effective security practices. And while technology provides the tools and infrastructure to enforce security controls and enable efficient security operations. All three components must work together in a well-coordinated manner to achieve a robust security posture. As you can see, both the CIA Triad, people, process, and technology, are crucial aspects of information security. The CIA Triad, comprising of confidentiality, integrity, availability, provides a comprehensive framework for protecting valuable assets. And while the people, process, and technology are the key components that work in tandem to implement effective security measures. So what I'm going to talk about now is the people bit. I'm very passionate about the people bit. It's probably the hardest piece to manage and control. Based on some research, and there is a lot of research out there, but based on the research, 82% of all data breaches involved the human element. Now, that's a lot of people clicking on links in phishing emails or opening attachments, or maybe downloading some software that they'll think make their job easier, or a pirated copy of a movie they wanted to watch, or maybe it was a system administrator misconfiguring a piece of equipment. Irrespective of what happened, people are usually involved in a breach. So what's happening out there? Looking at some surveys again, and again, as I say, there's lots of it, so I've tried to take the middle ground here. It's telling us that 50% of people use the same password for multiple accounts. In fact, some research tells us the average is 13 accounts with the same password. So whilst I was at Queensland Education, I was the Executive Director of Enterprise Technology and the Chief Information Security Officer. The largest credential dump I dealt with was just over 30,000 credential pairs dumped onto the internet. Student and staff use their educational email and password to sign up to sites on the internet. And while some of these sites were quite legitimate, for example, Seesaw, an online remote learning and communication platform designed for teachers, students and parents, others were somewhat questionable. But it's using these credentials multiple times is how Seesaw was compromised through credential stuffing. The next one is 62% of people open attachments from unknown sources, which is usually laden with malware or other malicious components to it. I can't believe it. Can you believe that? All the effort we put into security awareness training and people are still opening email attachments. And finally, 40% send sensitive information unencrypted via email, basically open for anyone to see. But can you really blame them? Have you ever tried to configure PGP? And of all of that, 93% acknowledge their actions would increase the risk to the enterprise. They know their actions are risky and they shouldn't be doing them, but they still do it. So why? Why do these people still do things even when they know it's risky and they have been told not to? That's what we do whole awareness training about. Telling people how risky it is to be doing these things and they shouldn't be doing it. We're not getting the outcome we need. So why do they do these things? And the answer is because it's easier. They are busy trying to get their job done, and we security people put things in their way that makes their day harder. For example, they need to do some work from home. There's a deadline to meet. They've got to do some work from home. And if they connect remotely, it gets a bit tough. The MFA and a few other things come into play. So what do? They email the documents to their own personal email account. Hey, presto. No more pesky MFA, but we've increased the risk. Or another thing they might do is they perceive a business benefit outweighs the risk, so justifies their actions. They want a tool to do a business function, so they download some free software from the internet because it's easy and it's fast. They can't wait weeks or months, as I've been in some organisations, for the IT group to do it for them or to someone to approve it. So they just go and do it, and they make a risk decision on the fly. And there's no consequences for these actions. Who has consequences as part of their disciplinary actions described in their acceptable use policy? Do you have that in your acceptable use policy? Do you have an acceptable use policy? And if you do, have you ever enforced those consequences? I would dare say probably not, unless it was blatant disregard for it. And I'm not saying we need to have a big stick that we continually smack people with, but there does need to be consequences for people's actions. So I do a lot of travel. I'm in a different city each week usually. I used to carry books with me. They're heavy and difficult to read after a long day. The poor old eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So I started listening to audiobooks. And the other week when I was flying back to Brisbane, I was listening to the Security Culture Playbook when I had a light bulb moment. And it said, just because I'm aware doesn't mean I care. Now, our whole security awareness training is built on making people aware. It's in the name of it. But just because people are aware doesn't mean they care. We do our awareness training and phishing exercises and get excited about click rates. Truth is, people don't care. They will do what they believe will make their life easier. People will always follow the path of least resistance. So I want to have a look at a couple of myths, and there's lots of myths and untruths in the whole IT and security industry, but there's three I want to look at today. Myth one, if we show employees that security is important, they will take ownership. Probably not. Humans don't, let me go back. Probably not. Humans don't take ownership. They don't do things just because they should. Take me, for example. You probably can't see me in this, but I'm overweight. And I'm told I should eat healthier foods and get some exercise. I'll lose weight, feel fantastic. If I eat salads, drink water, and go to the gym, run on a treadmill for a couple of hours. But I don't want to do that. I'd rather go to the pub with some mates, have a beer and a steak, and enjoy myself. Now, I know that's bad for me. I know that the salad and the water is a much healthier option, but how boring. So just because I know doesn't mean I'm going to do it. And second myth, if employees only knew, they wouldn't do it. Well, that's not true. That's not true. We've already seen that 50% of people use the same password for multiple accounts. And 62% of them open attachments from unknown sources. And 40% said they send sensitive information unencrypted via email. They do know, yet they still do risky things. 93% acknowledge their actions would increase the risk to the enterprise. So for employees to behave in a security conscious way, remove the friction, make it easier for them to do things. And this is sort of connected to myth one. If they've been involved in the design, they'd be more inclined to have a security conscious way about them. So in our example where we used the MFA earlier, if they enter their username and password, instead of forcing them to type in a 6 to 8 digit code that they got from a token or an app, just have an accept or decline button appear on their phone. It's only a small thing, but it goes a long way to making things simpler for people. Remove the friction, make life easy. And myth three, if something bad happens, they will report it. No, they won't. Fear and shame prevent reporting of incidents. You only have to look at what children, teenagers, usually, in the majority of cases, when they do something wrong, it will be denial and try to cover it up. For example, I was talking to a colleague in the office the other week, and he was telling me that his wife, a few months back, had got a speeding infringement. She just paid the infringement and kept quiet about it. And when he found out, he asked her about it, and she denied that it even happened. Shame makes us do things that we know aren't right. To overcome shame and fear, make reporting the least risky option. We need to move more like the aviation industry, where people are celebrated, almost rewarded for reporting a mistake, because it makes it safer for everyone. So your employees need to be active participants rather than passive observers. They will be your strongest line of defence if they feel some involvement and ownership of the cybersecurity program. And when you change to a culture and security just becomes ubiquitous, you will have a much less risky position. Now you can do that, or you can have a room full of monkeys and you're all using ChatGPT, whichever you like. Anyway, we'll move on now to data breach notifications in Australia. And there's been hundreds of them over the past couple of years, and this is just a small snapshot. But there's a couple I want to pull out to try and highlight something. So first, the Optus breach in September 2022, where around 10 million current and former Optus customers had personal details stolen. It appears the data breach occurred through an unprotected and publicly exposed API. This API didn't require user authentication before facilitating a connection. A lack of authentication policy meant anyone that discovered the API on the internet could connect to it without submitting a username or password. So if we make the assumption Optus had policy and process around how to secure the API, we can only assume that it was a people breakdown. One number of people didn't follow the process. The second one I want to have a quick look at is the Harcourt's breach of October 2022. Now, Harcourt's confirmed that its Melbourne City franchisee had been a victim of a cyber incident. And we understand unauthorised access occurred because a representative of StaffLink was using their own personal device for work purposes rather than a company-issued and probably more secure device. Now, again, if we make the assumption Harcourt's and or the franchisee had policy and process around the use of personal devices as part of their use policy, we can only assume this was a people breakdown. This person knew but did not follow the policy. And this small snapshot demonstrates that all organisations, large or small, public or private, any industry vertical, can be breached and will be breached at some point in time. Our job is to try and make that happen, or at least control what happens around it. So I want to move on to now the standards and frameworks, and you're trying to make your organisation more secure, and there's a whole bunch of standards and frameworks around the globe. And this is just a small sample, and I wanted to use this small sample just to show what's going on in Australia and how they are grouped together. So we cover international standards like ISO 27001, NIST and ATT&CK. And then there are Australian government frameworks such as the Information Security Manual, ISM, or the Australian Privacy Principles, APP, or the Essential 8. We then move on to some of the financial sector frameworks such as APRA's CPS 234, or health sector frameworks like the Health Information Security Awareness and Privacy, HISAP. Now, organisations will use one or a combination of standards and frameworks to achieve the security posture that's correct for their organisation. In the past, for the organisation I was in and what worked best for them, was I used ISO 27001 as the management framework and NIST as the controls. But that was just what worked for them. And there's other things that we do. So whilst there's a whole bunch of frameworks and standards, we've decided to use the MITRE ATT&CK framework for this webinar series. So I'll just give you a brief description of what that is, and then we'll talk about how this is going to play out. So the MITRE ATT&CK framework is a knowledge base and framework that provides valuable insights into the tactics, techniques, and procedures used by adversaries during cyber attacks. ATT&CK stands for Adversarial Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge. The primary goal of the MITRE ATT&CK framework is to aid in understanding and categorising the various methods employed by threat actors across different stages of a cyber attack. It covers a wide range of attack vectors, including initial access, persistence, privilege escalation, defence evasion, and exfiltration, among a whole bunch of others, and you can see them there. It organises this information into a matrix structure, commonly referred to as the attack matrix. The matrix consists of different tactics employed by the attackers, as we said, initial access, execution, exfiltration. Each tactic contains multiple techniques, which are specific methods employed to achieve the desired goal. So when you see this blown out, it's actually quite large. There's a lot to it. By using the MITRE ATT&CK framework, organisations can better understand the potential attack vectors and techniques that adversaries may use against them. This knowledge allows security professionals such as you to enhance your defences, detect ongoing attacks, and respond more effectively to cyber threats. So today we're going to look at reconnaissance and resource development, and in the future episodes we'll have a look at initial access and execution, Then they'll do a dive into persistence, privilege escalation, and defensive evasion. The credential access and discovery, followed by lateral movement and collection. And finally, they'll look at command and control, exfiltration, and impact. So first, the first section we're going to look at is reconnaissance, and it focuses on the initial phase of an attack, where adversaries gather information about their targets. It includes techniques, tactics employed to gather intelligence, identify potential vulnerabilities, and understand the target environment. Reconnaissance techniques can include activities such as researching publicly available information, scanning for open ports, searching for email addresses, or gathering information from social media platforms. By understanding the reconnaissance techniques employed by attackers, you can better protect your assets and monitor for potential threats. So some of the attack examples. Adversaries actively scan target networks or systems to identify potential entry points, open ports, vulnerable services, etc. We heard about the API earlier from Optus. This can involve using network scanning tools or custom scripts to probe for weaknesses. Adversaries, while using phishing emails or other social media techniques to trick individuals into revealing sensitive information or providing access credentials. Phishing attacks often involve creating convincing but malicious emails or websites to deceive victims. And this is where AI is really kicking in big time in AI constructing these attacks, these phishing attacks, and they look so real now. Adversaries will also search publicly accessible websites, domains, or online platforms to gather information about the target organisation, its employees, infrastructure, or potentially sensitive data. And this could include searching for email addresses, employee profiles, other vulnerable data on things like LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, all those sorts of places where your staff are operating. And that's what they're using to construct the phishing component. The next section is resource development. Once adversaries have gathered sufficient information about their target, they move on to the resource development phase. And this section of the matrix covers the techniques used by the attackers to create or acquire the necessary tools, infrastructure, or capabilities to support their attacks. It includes activities such as creating malicious software, developing exploit code, establishing command and control servers, or setting up backdoors. Resource development is crucial for adversaries to maintain persistence and carry out their objectives within the target network. Understanding these techniques can help you to detect and disrupt malicious activities, preventing further compromise of your systems. Both resource development are vital sections, both reconnaissance and resource development are vital sections of the MITRE attack matrix, as they provide insight into the early stages of an attack, allowing defenders, you, to proactively strengthen your security posture and identify potential indicators of compromise. Now, Fortinet can help you with these two sections with FortiGuard Lab, threat intelligence, and more detailed information of your environment by using a CTAP. Now, I'm going to hand back to Stephen now, who can talk about some of this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen has shown you the MITRE attack framework is not necessarily a management framework that you might choose to apply to your organisation, as it is essentially looking at an attack from the perspective of the attacker. However, it is a particularly useful tool as we can look at what the bad guys are doing and then formulate strategies for combating them. Hence why we're using it here as a framework for this webinar series, as we believe that it forms a very practical way to respond to real-world threats. So for some of the audience who may have more of a business focus rather than an IT or security focus, hopefully you can see that it makes a very complex topic simpler and easier to understand. But when I said earlier that there was method in our madness, that's what we were talking about. Now, moving on, by way of assisting you to understand where you may currently be exposed, or perhaps what your existing cybersecurity strategies are missing, we would like to introduce you to a service that we are offering called a Cyber Threat Assessment, or CTAP for short. I'd like to introduce Kieran O'Brien, who is going to talk more about what this means. Thank you, Kieran.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. I'll just quickly take over presenting. So the Cyber Threat Assessment Program effectively allows IntellectIT to gauge and assess your current security, productivity, and network or email utilization to identify and detect potential problem areas and work with you to overcome any identified potential problems. Now, this program looks at 3 key areas. The first is how effective your current security solution is. The second is how applications and resources are utilized. The third is then how the Fortinet solution can be optimized to best suit your real-world requirements. Now, this CTAP program is super easy and it's non-intrusive for you. At a high level, the first step is to have a meeting to outline what is involved to run a CTAP within your network. A Fortinet device is then deployed to collect logs and statistics. Now, once enough logs and statistics have been collected, the CTAP solution then generates a report with key findings for IntellectIT to then go back and review. And once that review has been done of that report, we then have enough real-world intel to go through and discuss these findings with you and to develop a solution to resolve the identified problem areas from that CTAP. Now, the CTAP program sort of proves the effectiveness of your existing security solution and how effective a Fortinet solution is at identifying real-world threats and vulnerabilities that are currently affecting you. There's no heavy investment. It's super quick to implement within your network, and there's no cost. It provides familiarity with how to solve all of the identified existing gaps that the CTAP solution finds. And finally, there's no interruption or disruption within your network. It's very, very seamless. And I'll give you an example of what a typical deployment looks like, just to sort of show you that it really is quite seamless. Now, there are 4 CTAP assessment types currently. 3 of them are based around network security. These are the next generation firewall, SD-WAN, and operational technology CTAPs. The 4th type is the email CTAP, and we'll review what this email CTAP is shortly. But first, let's have a look at the next generation firewall CTAP. So this will help identify security risks and understand productivity and network utilization. It's very quick and easy to implement, and there's no downtime or disruption within your network. A FortiGate appliance is deployed on site, and this is done to collect logs and statistics, and it's typically left in there for about 3 to 7 days to gather enough information about what's happening within your network. Once enough information is then collected, a comprehensive report is generated that includes 3 main sections, one detailing security findings, one for productivity, and the final is a very detailed analysis looking at utilization. And at the very end of the document, there's a set of actionable recommendations that are specific to what was identified within your network. And we'll have a look at a few example sections of what's included in that report in a minute. This report is then used to create actions to resolve any of those identified security, productivity, and network issues. The SD-WAN assessment is almost identical to that next generation firewall assessment, except it's focused on validating your readiness for SD-WAN. and how moving to an SD-WAN solution would bring value to your business. The detailed report that comes out of it focuses on network application and SaaS usage, bandwidth consumption, your business critical traffic, as well as security and network utilization information. The OT assessment is almost identical as well to the next generation firewall assessment, except it's focusing on validating your OT security posture and goes through and identifies existing industrial network security vulnerabilities that you're facing within your network. This detailed report that is generated from the OT assessment focuses on your internal and external traffic and communications channels that are used by any OT devices that the CTAP device detects within your network. It also has a look at your application vulnerabilities, your high-risk users and those high-risk industrial applications, as well as looking at OT-specific network utilization. Now, to give you an example of what a report contains, this is one component which was pulled out of the next generation firewall CTAP, and this is looking specifically at application vulnerabilities detected for that CTAP. Now, the list contains current identified exploits within your network from highest to lowest risk, providing insight into the specific threats and its classification, as well as how many victims exist within your network and the number of times that they were affected when that CTAP device was deployed. And this is useful in identifying servers as well as devices that simply have not been patched properly, identifying potential attack vectors for malicious actors. Another example of what a report contains is the malicious activity section. Now, this goes through and lists the identified malware, botnet, spyware, and adware actively being exploited within your network from highest down to the lowest risk. And this is useful in identifying if attackers are potentially already attempting to penetrate your network and your defenses, as well as what channels they're actually actively utilizing. And the final example I'd like to give you guys is the high-risk applications section. And this goes through and lists the identified high-risk applications utilized within your network, again, from highest to lowest risk. And this is really useful in identifying potential attack vectors for malicious actors and how many devices are openly utilizing these applications and potentially opening your defenses. Now, to reassure you that there is really no downtime when deploying a FortiGate for CTAP, for almost all CTAP deployments, this is typically what a next generation firewall CTAP deployment looks like. And because OT and SD-WAN are heavily based around the deployment of next generation firewall CTAP, those two also follow this type of deployment. Now, I've simplified a typical network down to just a main gateway, firewall, or router, and a core switch, and of course your internal LAN segments behind that. And essentially what is happening here is the CTAP unit is connected into a mirroring port on the core switch so that it can gather all of the traffic flowing throughout your network. And it's also connected into either a LAN or a DMZ port so that the appliance can then be managed and also send logs back to the CTAP portal to be able to generate that report. So as you can see here, it's really simple to do. We're not having to unplug devices out of your network. We're simply adding in the CTAP unit and then making quick changes to your switch. And then voila, we have all of the information that we need for this program. Now, finally, the email CTAP. This will help go through and validate your existing email security posture, productivity, and also your email utilization. Now, it's very quick and easy to implement. There is no downtime and there's no disruption to your emails. Essentially, what is happening is your emails are carbon copied to a FortiMail cloud instance, and this is typically done for 1 to 2 weeks for analysis. Then once enough information is collected, a comprehensive report is then generated, and this includes key things for security such as known and unknown detected malware, malicious URLs, impersonation attempts, and it also looks at productivity and email utilization to help you go through and scope things and understand, how many emails are being sent, who's sending the most emails, so you can go through and have a look at that information as well. Now, that was a quick overview of the Fortinet Cyber Threat Assessment Program and how it helps identify key security vulnerabilities and attack vectors, as well as provide insight into productivity and utilization. With that, I'll hand back over to Stephen. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kieran. Now, if anyone is interested in having a CTAP performed for their organisation, please contact us using the details shown on the screen. We have a form on our website, which can be found at www.intellectit.com.au/CTAP-registration, or existing customers can reach out to their respective account managers. We're also running a CTAP promotion in conjunction with this webinar. We're offering a $50 Uber Eats voucher for each completed CTAP. As Kieran said earlier, it's free of charge, it's unobtrusive to your network, and you just might find out something about your network that you didn't know. So again, reach out to us or use the form on our website to sign up. And now I would like to introduce Max Akomenov. Max, you've been monitoring the questions that have been submitted by the audience. What are some of the questions that are coming up?
Morning, Stephen. Looks like the webinar's been reasonably well detailed, so there's no questions so far, but welcome if anyone does have any questions for the for us, please feel free to post them in the queue.
Okay, and of course, if you've got any questions, feel free to contact us after the webinar. But if there's nothing coming through, I'll keep moving on and being conscious of everybody's time. So finally, on behalf of the IntellectIT team, I would like to thank you for joining us and extend our gratitude to Stephen, especially for his contribution. We hope you've liked what you've seen and heard today. In coming sessions, we'll be drilling down into detailed strategies that you can employ in your business to stay ahead of these threats. We would love it if you could join us again next time. Our team will follow up this session with a link to a recording for this session and the details for the CTAP if you missed them earlier. So thank you very much for your attendance, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.